Let's go. Key 3. All right. We already know that to get to $100 million in annual revenue, we have to do things a little differently. In the past videos, we've talked about strategic vision and focus and leadership strength. And today we're going to talk about brand mastery. Now, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of books written about branding and brand mastery. I am not intending to indicate that any of those are incorrect or that my advice is more correct. I just want to say that at a very, very bare minimum, paying attention to a couple of the things that you see in this video will help align your team for the type of scalable growth you are looking for. And for extra fun, we're actually going to look at a few of the businesses that actually made that goal in 2023. Just talk about their branding a little bit and how that applies to us. So, a couple things I will say. Know your ideal customer. Understand your industry, and then iterate until you succeed. And when I say iterate, that doesn't necessarily mean on a big scale, changing your logo every couple of months. Heaven forbid. It just means sometimes that's a testing thing, like an A/B type of testing at a small level. Sometimes that means that, wow, we rolled that out and most people in the company seem to get it, but maybe we should be describing it a little bit differently, or maybe we should help it show up a little bit differently. I'm actually going to give you an example of this that is actually a very big company, far above the $100 million in revenue, but a really good example of iterating until they succeed. So let's actually jump over and take a look at some companies that have been doing this. So the first one is Postcard Mania. So right away, do you do mailings? Maybe you're their ideal customer if you do. But if you don't, if you literally you hear these words and you're like, what? Postcard? Do people still use those? Then that might not apply to you. But they have actually done a really good job of indicating that while they are focused on postcards, number one, they're multi-channel. That probably took a little bit of iteration because for a lot of us that changed. But you can still see they really are sticking to this kind of concept of the postcard, and then they show that actually shows up in a different way, in this case, using matching Facebook and Instagram ads. So this company just reached $100 million. I did take a look at some of their background, and they really leaned in during the pandemic. So they did not pause or break any of their marketing budget for themselves, and they have been rewarded for that. So you can see here they provide a number of services around this mailing. And they have just a really good kind of focus on their existing customers and how they can do things maybe slightly differently in the marketing world. I happen to be a big direct mail fan, so I was actually excited to see this. Next, Blackline Safety. So there's a couple things here. Obviously, jumping to their website, I can see that they are looking for data-driven safety. I can tell that they are focused potentially on facilities. As far as their actual branding, are they targeting their ideal customer? You can tell I was a little bit more excited about the postcard one than this. I have zero use of this company in my day-to-day operations, whereas I certainly could use occasionally some good advertising, right? So right away, we're seeing that ability to reach your ideal customers. They're showing customers potentially different job sites or examples of where their technology may show up. And you can see here under, industries, they right away talk about, hey, these are the industries that we serve. Now, are they perfectly finite in their ideal customer? Potentially not. I see the and more, but they seem to be doing a pretty good job of at least pointing to the places where they can help. Now, branding shows up in many different ways, right? It's not just a website. The website is the easiest place for me to go and take a look at just their general branding. Are they clear on their messages? Are they showing images and examples that would actually apply to their ideal customers? If you're not doing that, if somebody's coming to your website and they don't know what you do, or what you do looks like you do 100 things, even if you do 100 things, you have to pull them in simply right at the beginning. So these are a couple of examples. Kong is another company. Now this is technology, and I only know that because right away I can see here that they're trying to show me that I can see something I'm not used to seeing, or I can see something in a prettier way than I'm used to seeing. indicates an API, becoming an API first company. So number one, I can tell they're trying to reach businesses. Number two, they're talking about speeding up time to market by unleashing this developer productivity. So basically streamlining API management. Again, postcards are going to win for me personally. I'm not ready to actually streamline my APIs, but I have been a part of companies where this would have been a huge benefit. And being able to understand, gosh, like we're managing either hundreds of APIs, maybe we've got all these connections for scalable operations, or maybe we're actually a tech platform that has maybe different APIs that are running. Either way, if I landed here, I might have a good example to jump in and say, oh, let me find out more. Just going to do 3 more quickly. Beatbox. I thought this was really interesting because I actually had not heard of them, but I don't think I'm in their target ideal customer. And this is going back to, knowing your industry, right? So this is knowing the tech industry. This is knowing the industry because right away, a couple things. Alcohol companies have to ensure that who is visiting their page is of age, at least in the US. And so indicating my birthday and email address in order to get in is actually accomplishing 2 things in this case, which I think is really cool. One, they are just collecting that. Like a lot of them will say yes if you are over this age. But this one is actually like giving you a chance to win free merch and free bevs. Not the ideal audience, but I love it. I love that they have just leaned into it, the colors, etc. So this is something that if I were to send it to, my kids who are of drinking age and, maybe their friends, they would be like, oh, that's cool, really cool, or they'd know or already know them. So the fact that they've hit this mark has a lot to do with understanding their ideal customer. Surely a lot of other things. You can't just get branding right and grow. I'm going to hit 2 others before I hit the story of iteration that I think is really important. So Capado is a Salesforce tool. So right away, ideal customer, right? If I don't use Salesforce, why would I be on this site? If I do use Salesforce, they're the easiest Salesforce testing tool. Well, if I'm just a user, like a salesperson of Salesforce, I don't care. But if I actually am in Salesforce development at all for my company, this is something that I might really be interested in. So they're being very, very clear right from the beginning. The last one I'll show is Apollo.io. Now, all of these companies I just went through have recently reached $100 million in US-based revenue. Sorry, back up. $100 million US. They could have earned it around the world. However, that has converted to that. And so I just thought it was really interesting to take a look at all of the different things that they are speaking to. So find and close your next deal, powering a go-to-market with one platform, accurate data. So this says to me that this is somewhat of a CRM or a CRM add-on. And so again, as a user, I have different perspective, but they do talk about, like, hey, this is the most up-to-date database, creating a pipeline. They're just super clear. They're not like, we're a general technology. They're saying, listen, find and close your next deal. If you're not doing this, if you're not being clear, then you are likely missing some customers when they get to your website. Another good resource for this is Anything Story Brand. Not only does it talk about your ideal customer, but it actually talks about making them a hero, which is a whole other conversation. So before we end this video, let's talk quickly about iterating. So one of my favorite examples of iterating is, some of you may remember, if you're US based especially, that Regions Bank started really pushing this green bicycle. I want to say it's 10 years ago. I could have that very, very wrong. And I was in financial services marketing at the time. And I remember asking, like, is that branding? Like, is that their brand? And I remember the feedback we'd gotten through the project we were doing. It's like, yeah, they're leaning into this, like, bike as their brand. And it's like, I don't think a bike is a brand. Like, I think a bike can be an example of a brand, maybe getting you places you can't otherwise go, or making it so easy anybody can, know how to bank, right? Like, it could be an example of something, but I'm not a copywriter. But it was not the brand. And I recently ran into them at a trade show, and I was very, very excited because they have really now leaned into building confidence. So they are the bank that is there to help you get and stay on track with your path to financial confidence. They want to teach skills. They want to encourage, the youth. They were actually, it was a youth expo I was at, and they had brought these little piggy banks. And as I talked to them, I realized they'd really found their voice, that is in the world of banking where there's all kinds of purposes for a bank to exist. Region has leaned into the concept of their brand, obviously being memorable. They've stuck to this brand mark for a long, long time. But for them, it is about being the bank that is accessible to help you be better at financial literacy. And now, even seeing this spike in this ad shows me that they have actually found a way to show up, still with that little icon, but in a way that is more serving the brand, not air quote, the brand. So in an overview, know your ideal customer, understand your industry, make sure your ideal customer sees that industry whenever they get to your website, and iterate until you succeed, until you find your authentic voice. Keys to brand mastery for me: having that brand purpose, really understanding the concept of why your brand exists is a little bit slightly different, can be a version of the mission and vision. You should definitely have a brand guideline, whatever size you are. This is just the very basic. If you're ever working with a designer, a web developer, etc., they're going to ask for this. Having that in place is really important. It'll have things like your brand purpose, your logos in a variety of ways, your colors. If it's great, it'll have some information on what to use as far as imagery and icons and what not to use. To that point, the devil's really in the details. So considering, icons and text, and some of this doesn't have to come right away, but definitely feeling like when somebody sees you online or even in store or at shows, that they're having a consistent experience is part of creating a brand. Now, that experience with your brand could be that it's very, it's technology based and, not a lot of the customer experience, but you're going to have an efficient tech tool, or it could be something very, very friendly or very, very fun, like the beatbox. So having an asset repository and a process for getting things there. So this should not be something you create later. Collect your photos, collect your videos, tag them, name them, have the team have access to these. And if they're not on brand, move them out and be very, very clear about that. And then ensuring your brand has a 360-degree application. So in the example of regions, I'm assuming, I don't know, but I would assume that for every new employee, existing employees, etc., that they do lots of financial literacy classes on top of just onboarding them to work for the company. So making sure that whatever your brand purpose is and that general feel, emotion, how you expect your customers to experience that shows up in your employees, whether that's onboarding, reviews, rewarding, on your social media. How do you respond? Are you snarky and quick? Are you reserved and don't engage? Are you somewhere in between? This should all flow through so that your team can move when situations pop up. And of course, anywhere that you have a physical storefront, and that could be physical online, physical in person. So making sure that you have those things in place. And from there, onward and upward. Keep tuned in for any additional keys that we go over. And if you ever need more information on any of these keys, want somebody to help you align and determine where you are in getting these keys all turned in the right direction, reach out to us at advisory9.com. We'd be happy to chat.